Thank you for staying until the last talk of the session, or maybe even of the conference. And I didn't prepare a too technical slide in view of probably you are as excited and exhausted like me after these 2 days, so let's keep it simple. But maybe the main message or the main thought, I'll put it as a question. How should we deal with black swans when it comes to quantum safe migration? And here is my pointer, yes. So I'd like to elaborate a bit on this. But we just heard that QKD is not recommended, or at most recommended as a third option by the BSE. But still, I'd like to explain a bit why we think or why we propose quantum key distribution as a way, together with PQC, to secure the most critical use cases already today. And let's start with a few statements that I collected. For example, NIST says, if you have a good use case, then you can use alternative key exchange mechanisms like QKD already today. So it's not that NIST forbids or discourage using QKD, but if you have a good use case, go ahead. Manfred Rieck was mentioning a recommendation from the European Commission in the same document. They said that QKD together with PQC should be considered in future hybrid schemes, it's mentioned here. Then the Monetary Authority of Singapore says the same. Look into PQC, maybe this is the priority, but also consider QKD as an hybrid approach. This one is one of my favorites. It's from JP Morgan. They said several times this year, but recently on a conference last week, that they are pursuing both approaches, quantum cryptography, which is PQC, and QKD. And this is, for me, this is more important, or has some weight, because these guys are spending money on this, and this means that they probably have thought about it more than just words, and press releases. And Moody's also said in a statement or in a paper last week that today PQC starts to be standardized, certification will come, but future standards should also include QKD. Right? So if PQC is So the question is, why are these organizations, they're considering both? Why is PQC alone not enough? And I'd like to elaborate a bit on this. So, because the problem is multi-dimensional, first of all, the value we want to protect, the digital data that carries the value, is increasing and increasing. And now in the 90s, we might have credit card information flowing around in the early internet. Today, it's really data that is existential for many organizations. There is also the Bitkom study from last year that shows that there is a majority of German companies now see an existential threat in cyber attacks, and this will increase in 10, 20 years. More and more of our life will be in the digital domain, and also organizationally, this means that attacks are more and more harmful. There is the urge that was mentioned before. We don't see any quantum winter so far in terms of investment. There was a bit of a dip last year, but already this year there's a lot of investment still in quantum. The complexity was mentioned. We heard big banks, for example, Wells Fargo, saying earlier this year that they have no chance to migrate to post-quantum or to quantum safe until 35, and this is a bit in line what we just heard from Manfred Lochter. It's a marathon. This not only because of the complexity of one migration, but that we expect that there will be new standards coming, new updates, and just a single update or single migration. It's not a one-shot thing. For the next years, we expect many migration cycles. And the last thing, and this is a challenge that we have with the legacy cryptography and now with the post-quantum, this is what also Manfred Lochter said, there is no fundamental proof that there is not an algorithm or some way of attacking, breaking the codes on the fundamental level. And this I've stolen from a LinkedIn post early this year. You know that Psych and Rainbow were broken previously, and then for a moment people thought that maybe there was something on LWE, which is a part of a class of post-quantum cryptography. This was not the case for this instance, but this just illustrates a bit. You never know with PQC. And the combination of zero-day risks and harvest now, decrypt later, as we heard before, this is inherent risk of PQC, which cannot go away. So I wanted to elaborate a bit on this risk assessment because it's very difficult to communicate, I find. And I took Rumsfeld 20 years ago. He talked about unknown unknowns, and this concept was known already before, but he made it very popular. So we have known knowns. This is things that we understand and control, and here we just have to monitor and maintain what we are doing. This is easy. Then we have the unknown knowns, which are typically psychological biases, or you shouldn't click on this link in the email you receive, and typically you achieve it, but sometimes you click anyway. So this is a threat that can be countered with processes, training, and making things conscious. Then there are the known unknowns, or like I say, known risks. And known risks are things that we can assign a probability that something happens. We can assign a clear value to what is at stake. And this is then, let's say, classical risk management. And then the unknown unknowns or unknown risks. And these are things that we don't understand, we are not aware of, and there's no way of quantifying it. Yes, and with post-quantum or quantum safe, this is a bit where the challenge we have. And typically, what we say here, agility is the solution. You prepare for interview, you don't know which questions you will be asked, but you can prepare yourself to be agile in the sense of whatever question comes, you have a way to dealing with it. You go one step back, you put in context, and so can deal with it. But there is a challenge with agility, or when it comes to post-quantum. And this comes with this combination from zero-day flaws and harvest now, decrypt later. And this is a bit oversimplified, or my naive way of thinking of migration paths in the next, 20 years. So today we have the first post-quantum standard, ML-Chem, version 1, published 1 month ago, and implementation can start now. We heard about the resistance on the organization level that CISOs feel a bit uncomfortable or don't see this as a priority, although it should be a priority. I see it also on the level of manufacturers of routers and encryptors, where I just talked this week to somebody from such a company and said, yeah, our chief cryptographer said, let's wait a bit, now Kyber is published and standardized, but let's wait a bit and see what happens, So even on this level of the vendors, there is no jumping on it right now and doing everything. And then, so whenever there's a new standard, people will have to adapt, and I talked about the complexity of this. And this gap between standardization or releasing of a standard and implementing in an organization, at least theoretically we can minimize to 0, but there is it's a huge challenge. But then there's the bigger challenge, namely assume that version 1 of Kyber is not recommended anymore because of a 0-day exploit. Could be on the implementation level, probably not then on the standard level, but could be even more fundamental. And then with the harvest now, decrypt later, this opens an opportunity for the attacker to collect data on a rather recent time scale. And I hope you can read it. I think you still remember CrowdStrike this year in July. Airports were down or hospitals couldn't operate as usual. And I read that CrowdStrike managed to update this faulty release within 79 minutes. Rather quick, right? But still, the damage was there. It says $5 billion of damage in the economy. And this was operational, it's not a security thing, but it shows that agility is great. You can react within 1.5 hours, but there is still an impact that you cannot revert. Okay, so for this reason, we think we recommend, or we propose to use quantum key distribution as an additional element in the most critical use cases, because it reduces the pressure to follow up with new releases of PQC standards. It protects you when using QKD in parallel from zero-day flaws in PQC, and also maybe on the implementation level, as Mr. Locher said. Because QKD is a complementary method to exchange keys. It's based on quantum physics. So this means that it has a different attack surface. It's not like lattice-based PQC implement or algorithm 1 and 2, which are very similar maybe in structurally. If you can break it on a fundamental level, you might break both of them at the same time. And then there is one very important aspect, is that on the communication line, I mean, this is optics. We have to, the QKD works on fiber or free space. So on this, whenever you listen to on the quantum channel between the two boxes, sorry, I come to this later, there is no assumption on the computational strength of the attacker, nor on the knowledge. So there is no algorithm that you can come up with and break QKD in future. So in this sense, it's attack now or never. There is no, if QKD is done correctly, there is no harvest now, decrypt later for QKD. And this is really an important aspect. And QKD is again, a physical method. It's more costly than PQC. It's more effort to implement because you have specialized hardware. But in the most important use cases, data center interconnect, maybe in future in the cloud structures, all where the most important data is going over, we recommend to consider QKD as an alternative. So in this sense, now it's a bit provocative, but I would claim that with QKD, you can avoid the unknown unknowns to some extent. Okay, so this is, now I have 3 technical slides, but it's still not too technical, but bear with me. So this is just what I said verbally, again, as a figure, and how this hybridization works. So the most simple use case is data center interconnect. You have a headquarters and a backup data center, and you have a data line transporting the data over the network. So today, typically we use AES for symmetric encryption and elliptic curve, for example, for the key exchange mechanism, and in future or from now on PQC in the best case. And QKD is an infrastructure you put in parallel. So these are boxes that are in the server racks of where the encryptor is. So this is physically very close, right? And then you have the key for the encryption coming from asymmetric cryptography, and the key coming from the QKD method. And then you, with the key derivation function, you get a final key with which you then encrypt the data. And this is logically separated. There's a quantum channel between the two boxes. We call them Alice and Bob. And this is on fiber, could be also free space in future, like with satellites. But in principle, it's an optical channel. All right? And more precisely, what we do also at IDQ, where I'm from, we combine PQC, QKD, and QRNG, which is a random number generator, to transfer the key to the from one endpoint to the other. So assume that you have here site A could be Berlin, site D could be Frankfurt, right? So you have 2 data centers here, and they want to communicate safely, so they need to exchange a key to encrypt the data. We use locally a quantum random number generator to generate this key, and then the challenge is to transport this key over to the other side. This is done end-to-end using asymmetric crypto. Again, elliptic curve or other algorithm. And then QKD is used hop to hop because there are, I didn't mention this so far, sorry. QKD has some distance limitations, so we can go to 100 kilometers max. If you want to go more, a few hundred kilometers, let's say this, you have to concatenate QKD, and this is called trusted node. So on the way from Berlin to Frankfurt, you have QKD as a parallel infrastructure, and the key which is encrypted already with PQC or classical crypto is in addition encrypted with QKD keys. You can think of an onion model where you have the key, the user key, the PQC key, and the QKD. And inside the trusted node, there is no QKD protection, but there is at least a PQC protection. And this idea can then be extended. And what we're doing today is building whole QKD networks, where you have this layered approach. On the top layer, you have the secure application. Typically, this is an encryptor. Could be from Thales, Adva, Siena, Cisco, Nokia, all the Juniper, all the companies that are providing encryption. And then there is a software layer that makes sure that the keys, as I explained before, is transported safely from location 1 to 2. Again, Berlin and Frankfurt. And on the bottom, you see the infrastructure layer. So you have point-to-point, you have QKD links. And they built this physical infrastructure, and the software in between manages the secure transport of the user key through this network. And this is basically the solution that we are working on and proposing. And so just because Mr. Locher said there is no QKD product, of course there are QKD products, and for example in our company, ID Quantique, here we have the 4th generation. But instead of me claiming this, I took a LinkedIn post from Juan Moreno from AWS, and he agrees with me. He says that today these QKD devices, they are real. The look and feel is like normal servers, right? You have an optical connection, but they behave like, or they can be treated like normal IT devices. And yeah, they're designed for production environment in data centers. So it's, according to him, time to embrace QKD. And just to show you, let's say, our biggest achievement in terms of deployment over the last 2-3 years. So in Korea, we built a QKD network for the Korean government, spanning part of the country. So this is like 800 kilometers of fiber. You see here different lines and colors. These are the 3 layers I was mentioning before: the infrastructure, the network software, and the secure application layer. And so there are in total 127 consumer links, so point-to-point and end-to-end connections. And this is realized with 27 of these links that I was mentioning before. From a, let's say, ecosystem point of view, I like a lot what is going on in Singapore right now. It's smaller in terms of network size, but Singtel, which is one of the big telecom operators there, they built this ring of QKD network ring, and then now they're offering this infrastructure to connect the customer sites, their customers, end-to-end with QKD. And in this way, it's more affordable for companies to use QKD, and this is a very important step for us in order to build up a product, an offer to the end user, which is useful for, or affordable and valuable for the clients. And the last example is from Europe. So now in Poland, we have the biggest QKD network based on commercial systems. It spans more than 1,700 kilometers. It was built this year. It's phase 2 of the EuroQCI national project they have there, and it shows that to to this extent of a few dozens of QKD links, QKD is ready to be used in production environment and at this scale. Okay, so I'm almost done. Just I want to give you the positive spins after talking about all these unknowns and challenges, because unknowns, there could also be about something positive. And I just recommend you to watch this YouTube video from Bill Gates and Dave Letterman from 1995, where Dave Letterman asked Bill Gates about the advantages of this young thing called internet. And Bill Gates said, yeah, if you miss a baseball match, you can go to the internet and then you can read the result, and maybe one day you can even watch a video of this game. And Dave Letterman says, well, guy, did you hear about newspaper and tape recorders? No, even for Bill Gates, who was really pushing this technology, he was not able to explain the benefit of the internet at this point. But still we did it, and now we have a lot of benefit from this that we couldn't imagine in 1995. And I would claim that, and I put this as a kind of vision, that once we have QKD deployed and used, there will be new applications, security applications based on symmetric keying that we cannot imagine today. There will be new science and new research on what we can do with QKD infrastructure. And I don't want to touch this topic now, but QKD is just, let's say, one aspect of quantum communication, which then could go much further, connecting quantum computers. But this is really many, many years away. So with this, I'd like to conclude. I think there is a lot of homework for many of us. I just highlight a few things. From the industrial point of view, we have to make this value proposition for the end user, building up this ecosystem, working together. This is very important. From the politics, I would like to see endorsement of innovation and also support of standardization and certification of QKD. That industry is not left alone with this. But I'm thankful for what BSI and others are doing here in Germany and also in Europe. And well, for all the organizations, yes, this is just repetition of what we heard before. Get ready, find your optimal mix of QKD, QRNG, and PQC, and go ahead with the migration. So if you want to more know about QKD networks, you might want to consider coming to our workshop in November in Vienna. We did it last year in Vienna for the first time, now for the second time, and would be great to see you there. Thank you a lot for your attention.